To say that both Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari have had a bad 2020 would be an understatement to say the least. Poor performances on track, a messy inter-team relationship between everyone involved, and now an even uglier divorce with Vettel leaving Ferrari at the end of this season. Today I'm going to be taking a hard, honest and comprehensive look at what's happened to both Vettel and Ferrari in 2020, why both of them have made more than their fair share of mistakes over the past few seasons, and then talk about if both Vettel and Ferrari can really prove each other wrong in 2021. So yeah, strap in boys and girls, because this is going to be a bumpy ride. It's honestly difficult to summarize in just one simple sentence at just how bad Ferrari have been, but their collapse over the course of just 3 years has been nothing short of a sensational catastrophe. I mean, it hasn't been as bad as say McLaren's collapse was between 2012 and 15, when they went from fighting for a title in 2012 to being easily the second worst team on the grid in 2015, only ahead of the backmarkers Marussia, but nevertheless it's been a horror show from Ferrari. It was only 3 years ago that the 2017 season was wrapping up, and in that year, despite Ferrari losing out on the title due to some driver errors and some really costly reliability issues, for the most part it was a great year and a great season for them as well, as they had finally built a car capable of fighting for a title against Mercedes. And at the time it was also just really great to see Ferrari and Vettel well and truly back and giving us a title fight against Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. In terms of the stats over the past few seasons, it just shows how quickly everything has gone so wrong. In 2017, the team again had a rejuvenated season, getting 5 wins with 20 podiums and finishing the season on 522 points, with second in the constructors. In 2018, they had a better season, in my opinion, actually had the best car that year despite losing out to the championship, claiming 6 wins, 23 podiums, and finishing the season on 571 points, with again second in the constructors. In 2019, they had a big dip, only taking 3 wins that season, not challenging for a championship, only taking 19 podiums and finishing with 504 points, however, again in second place in the constructors. However, then we get to 2020 and a massive collapse for Ferrari. This season so far, with 3 races still to go of course, they have 0 wins, only 3 podiums, and at the moment they only have 130 points and are currently only 6th in the constructors. For anyone that has been watching my channel for a very long time, one of the videos that really got my channel some traction was a video I made back in 2018 in which I said that although there was no doubt that Vettel choked in 2018 and let the title slip away, I said at the time that despite everyone laying the blame solely on Sebastian Vettel, Ferrari and the way the team was run internally, and hence some of the decisions that were made on track, had a huge part to play in Vettel losing the 2018 title. And even since 2018, nothing has changed. The fact is that Ferrari as a team are not on the same level as either Mercedes or even Red Bull. Honestly, sometimes I genuinely think that you could give Ferrari the Mercedes car and they'd still find some way to mess it up because, well, that's just what Ferrari seem to do best. Their strategy department has been questionable for the past 2-3 seasons, making ridiculous calls and confusing their drivers like we've seen multiple times already this season with both Vettel and Leclerc. Their pit crew is also well below par, not only struggling to occasionally make sub 2-second pit stops like the Red Bull guys do every single weekend, but especially as of late, the amount of mistakes and really slow pit stops has just been crazy. And although they're not fighting for a championship now, in a real title battle that could seriously cost them multiple victories in close-fought races where strategy and fast pit stops are key. Their car design has also been inconsistent, not as inconsistent as Red Bull because Ferrari in the hybrid era have managed to produce 2 title-challenging cars in 17 and 18, but nevertheless it hasn't been good enough. And then of course there is all the controversy surrounding their maybe illegal engine at the end of 2019, which the FIA decided to keep quiet because, you know, it's the FIA and it's Ferrari. And finally we get to their management and the question of Matteo Binotto. Now, I've actually been a bit of a Binotto defender over the past few months, not because I like the guy or think that he's doing a stunning job, because guess what guys, he's not, but I've been watching F1 long enough to see Ferrari chop and change team principles faster than Red Bull chop and change young drivers. So that is why I'd still give him one more season with the brand new driver lineup in 21 to try and have at least one last chance to sort the mess at Ferrari out before the new regs in 2022, or at least show some signs of progress towards the end of next year. But when you look at what McLaren have done, bringing in a race-winning team principal like Andreas Seidel, and the fact that Zach Brown himself actually had the guts to step away from the pit wall and hire Andreas to replace him as the team principal, it shows that McLaren as an organization is in a much better place internally, and the results on track have also shown this as they've improved over the past 4 years, since the Honda era, with the team making progress back up the grid and in 2020 overtaking the likes of Ferrari. So Ferrari are a mess, there is no two ways about it, and when you throw into the mix the fact that they dropped Vettel before the beginning of the season, the way Binotto has handled the situation has been nothing short of terrible. Now again, I supported Ferrari dropping Sebastian. In fact, I made a video at the beginning of 2020 before this was even announced, saying that I think dropping Vettel would be the right thing to do for the team. What I said at the time, and I still stand by it now, is that it wasn't a question of Vettel's speed, it was a question of can Vettel and Leclerc coexist together at Ferrari and work together to win a championship against the mighty Mercedes, even if they had a car quick enough to do so. And my answer to that was no, because even in 2019 I began to see a can of worms beginning to open with these two drivers as teammates, and for me it was beginning to get very sour very quickly, and clearly Ferrari thought the same way, so I totally understand their decision to drop Vettel at the end of 2020. Replacing him with a character like Carlos Sainz, however, well, I've still got very mixed feelings as to whether or not that was the right choice, but I'll leave that for a later video. In the end, nothing about the way Ferrari have handled the Vettel situation surprises me. Although it wasn't as prevalent on social media as it is now, it's almost a copy and paste of what Alonso went through in 2014. And when it comes to Binotto and the way he's handled and acted over the course of 2020, it hasn't been good enough, blaming Vettel at every chance he gets with a passive-aggressive comment, and clearly a lack of leadership skills to actually sort the problems that Ferrari have internally. Whilst there is no doubt that Ferrari have played a huge part in Seb's struggles, he himself has to take responsibility for his poor performances as well. In terms of why he struggled, in my opinion, that comes down to two main reasons. Number one, him not being able to fully exploit the car and hence losing out to Leclerc, and then secondly, the vast number of mistakes he's made under pressure in a relatively short amount of time. Now, I want to say right from the off and make something clear. I am a big Vettel fan. I really liked him at Red Bull and then continued to support him during his time at Ferrari. However, I am a Vettel fan, but I am not a Vettel apologist. In terms of the car not being suited to his driving style, I honestly don't fully understand that excuse, because unlike Alex Albon, who is in his second year in F1 and is clearly still learning to drive and adapt in that tricky Red Bull, that is a genuine reason for Alex's struggles. Sebastian Vettel, on the other hand, is a 4-time world champion. He's raced in 14 F1 seasons and he's now started over 250 Grand Prix. So what I can't comprehend is how a 4-time world champion, one of the most successful drivers in the history of Formula 1, the third most experienced driver on the grid, still hasn't learned to change his style, compensate for a car with different handling characteristics, and adapt to the equipment that he is given, because he's been in this situation before in 2014 with Red Bull. Now, something else that I hear a lot is that the 2020 car is completely designed around Charles and that Seb was basically locked in a cupboard and gave no input. Now, that to me doesn't make any sense, because the design timeline of a brand new car is not just a few months like many people think, especially for a top team like Ferrari. They begin designing a brand new car well over a year before it's launched. For example, here is what Mercedes' technical director James Allison said about when they began to design their car for the 2019 season.
A new car actually starts a lot earlier than people think it does, and the W10, our 2019 car, started actually in the dying months of 2017.
So that's the thing, the car literally could not have been completely built around Leclerc for 2020 if he wasn't even a Ferrari driver when the team started to design the aero concept. Now obviously over the course of the 2019 season the drivers had more and more input on the new car, but either way, even the 2019 Ferrari was not built around Leclerc either, and yet he was still able to come into the team, adapt to the new car and perform to the best of his abilities by beating Vettel in his first ever season for Ferrari. So this is what frustrates me most when it comes to the key reasons for Seb not gelling with either the 2019 car or more so the 2020 car. I get that it doesn't suit his driving style, and I get that if he was given a car with more rear downforce, that it would suit him a lot better. But in F1 you have to be versatile and you have to adapt. I mean, think about how much worse it is for the guys in the midfield driving cars like the Haas and the Williams. I mean, you don't hear people saying that the only reason Latifi is not doing any better is because the car is designed around George Russell, and at the end of the day it's not like Charles Leclerc is loving the 20 Ferrari either. He's just got into the car and got on with the job at hand. However, now we get to the immense number of mistakes that Seb has made under pressure in race situations over the past few seasons, and honestly, this list is borderline embarrassing. Beginning in 2017, we get firstly to Baku, where he purposely crashed into Lewis Hamilton under the safety car. Then we get to Singapore that year, where he crashed on lap 1 into Kimi Raikkonen and Max Verstappen while starting on pole position. Then we move into 2018, and firstly there was France, where he crashed into the back of Valtteri Bottas on lap 1. Then we get to Germany, where he crashed out whilst in the lead of the race. Then we move on to Monza, where he spun whilst battling with Lewis Hamilton. Then we move on to Japan, where again he spun whilst battling with Max Verstappen. And then finally in 2018 we move on to the USA, where again he spun whilst battling with Daniel Ricciardo. Next on we move on to 2019, and starting with Bahrain, in wheel-to-wheel combat with Lewis Hamilton he spun. Then we move on to Canada, where he went wide whilst in the lead of the race and put himself in the position to be penalised. Then in Britain he crashed into the back of Max Verstappen whilst trying to overtake him. Then in Italy he spun under absolutely no pressure. And then finally in 2019 in Brazil he collided with Charles Leclerc. And then finally we get to 2020, and first of all there was Austria, where he tried to overtake Carlos Sainz, crashing into him and spinning out. At the 70th anniversary Grand Prix he spun out again on lap 1, and then yet again in Germany in the Nürburgring he spun out once again in the middle of the race. Now, the reason why I've decided to list every single one of those to you guys is because when you really sit down and look back and count up all of those driver errors, it honestly blew my mind. I think Vettel has made more errors in 4 years than I think Hamilton has in his entire career. And to me, all of it can be traced back to the crash at Hockenheim in 2018. That was the one incident, in my opinion, that just started the chain reaction, and seeing Seb continue to make mistake after mistake, even after Hockenheim, in my head, even back then in 2018, alarm bells just started ringing that this whole Vettel and Ferrari situation could very quickly begin to spiral out of control. And in fact, yet again, I made a video just before the beginning of the 2019 season titled "Why 2019 Will Be a Make or Break Season for Seb," and here is what I said in that very video.
And the final option would be if Charles Leclerc really comes out of the stable and, let's just say, asserts his dominance as the new force in Formula 1, up there with Max Verstappen, as a real up-and-coming star. I mean, he already is, but he could be that next level star and maybe even jump Max Verstappen. That's the other option, that he could assert his dominance and just beat Vettel down mentally. This young gun coming in and beating him straight away. And in that case, I think we'll be saying goodbye to Sebastian Vettel very, very soon, because once Sebastian Vettel loses confidence and loses his determination, I think then he could be in a real spiral and in real big trouble, and might even be looking for another seat in Formula 1 as early as 2020.
Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say that I called it, but I feel like my analysis of the Vettel and Ferrari dynamic has been pretty accurate over the past few years, and that is why seeing what's happened so far in 2020 hasn't really surprised me. Something else I don't think was needed by Seb was all of the little jabs at both Ferrari and Binotto, like this one after his podium in Turkey.
Yeah, I think it's quite bad. I think we scored probably the most points this year for us. And Mattia wasn't here, but yeah, if next race we don't score as many points, maybe we try again to leave him at home, but no, I don't think.
Now, I know that he tried to play it off as a joke, but no one was fooled, and Look, I get from the fans' perspective that he's just firing back at the team that dropped him, and as I mentioned earlier, Ferrari and Binotto themselves deserve a huge amount of criticism for some of the things that they've said and done. But in Formula 1, just as in life, 2 wrongs do not make a right, and I really expected Vettel to come out and be the bigger man in 2020, instead of throw the odd petty comment back at Ferrari to the media, which just makes everything worse. When it comes down to it, the same frustration that Alonso had at Ferrari and even at McLaren, which everyone held against him, is exactly the same way that Sebastian is feeling right now. So maybe it really is just a case of both of these guys are human, both are emotional, and both have had to deal with a mentally draining environment at Ferrari. So that's the thing, I don't want to try and put too much blame on Sebastian Vettel because in my opinion there is no doubt that Ferrari take the majority of the blame for everything that has happened over the past 3-4 years. But Sebastian Vettel himself has underperformed far too often, making mistake after mistake, throwing away a championship in 2018, losing to another young teammate in 2019, and putting himself in the position of being dropped by the team. And that's the bottom line when it comes to Seb's struggles. If he bounced back after the disappointment of 2018, if he had come out in 2019 and outperformed his younger teammate, we would not even be having this conversation, but the simple fact is, he didn't. So the question is, what happens now for Sebastian Vettel? Despite everything I've just said about Sebastian Vettel, call me a sucker, but I still have belief. His drive in Turkey showed that although emotionally and mentally he's done with Ferrari and done with the 2020 season, that Vettel speed and that Vettel magic is still there. We've seen this story before when Seb left Red Bull in 2014, joining Ferrari and rejuvenating his career. Going to Aston Martin, giving him a fresh new challenge and a new motivation is exactly what I think he needs, especially considering how strong Aston Martin should be next year with the 2020 Mercedes upgrades. However, there is only so many times that Seb can pull that ace out of his sleeve, and it's not 100% guaranteed that he'll be able to pull off the same trick as he did when he joined Ferrari. The grid has moved on with so many young, fast, hungry drivers in that midfield, and yet, despite this, I do expect Seb to improve in 2021, maybe not return to his absolute peak because I'm not even sure if that's possible, but improve nevertheless. But there are no guarantees in F1, as even Sergio Perez found out by losing his seat, and with Lance Stroll taking a big jump this season, it's not completely out of the question to say that Lance Stroll could outperform Seb the same way that Ricciardo did in 2014 and Leclerc did in 19 and now 20. And if that does happen, which is an absolute possibility, what excuses will we be making for Seb if that does become a reality? In the end, there is only one man that can decide how this story will end, and that is Sebastian Vettel, because in 2021, we're going to see if it was really Ferrari dragging Vettel down, or if Sebastian's days in F1 are numbered. Well guys, there you go. That is my video on Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari and everything that has been going on, not just in 2020, but over the past few years. Now let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below. I cannot wait to see what you guys think. I know that Vettel and Ferrari is always just a very big hot topic. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what you guys think. Now, if you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and don't forget to check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.